FazWaz has a huge amount of data, right? We've got 60,000 leads over the last 6 months, 10,000 every month, hundreds of nationalities, and 300 billion close of demand. So we're going to break down the data for the real estate market and say what it means and try and give you enough guidance. The reason why I'm here saying this is that we own a lot of different platforms: FazWaz, Thailand Property, Dot Property, HitFlat, and about 10 others that we own in the portfolio. We have a huge amounts of data, so we can give you like a definitive view on where the market's going and what type of trends we're seeing. When we look at the rentals and sales, the trends of the data, rentals is very much seasonal based, right? We see during the high season it ramps up and it dips down. Sales is much more steady. The only interesting part was what happened in March. March, the number of leads almost doubled for the whole region of Phuket in our platform. Now, look, I'm not going to make any assumptions. The war started the end of February in the Middle East. It could have been the spike. So look, what's actually moving? So look, the buyers came off the sidelines. They rose up. We saw a massive peak, and they dropped back down. We're going to try and break these numbers down to try and understand why exactly this happened. So this one's interesting, right? This is the average, the median price point of everyone inquiring in Phuket. So you can see it's usually around 6 million, the median, right? You're removing the top and the bottom. We're just taking like the core median numbers. But in March, we saw a massive pump up, right? The question was why? Is this driven by the luxury, high-end people seeking there, or was it the mid-market? The answer was, it was the mid-market. So that segment of 10 to 20 million on the demand side is really what drove March slightly wild here. A massive increase. You can see there the slightly lighter line is the kind of the low budget, under 5 million type properties, which dropped down and the mid-market rose up. So the mid-market really drove the March growth, so that 10 to 20 million price point. And while this was going on, rentals stayed relatively steady, which is interesting. And what we're seeing is a very healthy trend upwards in terms of the average rental price we're seeing in Phuket, sorry, the medium, so not an average. Everything is a medium here. So the medium rental price in Phuket has moved up from 30 to 38, and we see this hopefully as a trend to follow, where we see a healthy rentals market, because we need all three of them to exist: new homes, resales, rentals, all together to create that whole kind of economy that we need. I think it all comes down to the West Coast. I think we all know this. I mean, we're in Chiang Mai, that's where we are now, and this is the biggest demand area. And as you move across, this is where you're going. So you're moving, all the way down south, and eventually you come back to Kamala and Cameron, which are commanding now premium because of beach view or beachside or cliff view. There's a premium now being commanded in these areas, although demand isn't as strong as what you see here. So look, these are the 7 takeaways I've got from the market, from what I've been talking around. The market's definitely a rental-driven market. The mass market is the center of gravity, so chuck a big bowling ball in the mass market, and around it is all the periphery of this. Phuket's truly global. People talk about it, but don't share data. We hear developers up here talking about how global this is. We don't see any data. I showed you the demand is massively international. Every neighborhood is slightly different. Demand is different. You can't treat them all the same. If you're in the periphery of real estate, you're a developer or working in, you can realize that price points and different requirements are different per area, which is really interesting. The sales demand is much smaller than rentals, but it's heavy. Heavy being that the ratio is 3 to 1, a really, really strong sales market that's happening in Phuket. The value sticks on the West Coast. And the last one is that trend line I showed you on the rentals. I didn't actually show you a trend line, but the trend of the rental price growing is very, very positive for Phuket, because a strong rental market will lead to a strong sales market.